At the most extravagant wedding of the year, just as the billionaire was about to speak his vows, a black waitress burst through the center aisle, grabbed the groom's hand, and pulled him away from the altar. The entire cathedral fell silent. Guests whispered. Security rushed forward. Everyone assumed she was just a server who had crossed the line. But seconds later, a sound echoed through the room, and the billionaire's face turned to stone. What did this woman know that the bride never wanted him to hear? The night before the wedding, St. Augustine Cathedral gleamed under 1,000 crystal lights. White roses cascaded from every archway, silk ribbons draped across mahogany pews. This was not just any wedding. It was the wedding of Raphael Anderson, the self-made billionaire who had built his empire from a single hotel room 30 years ago. Naomi Carter pushed her cleaning cart through the service entrance, her black uniform blending into the shadows. She had worked for Premier Catering for 6 years now, long enough to know the rules. Stay invisible. Do your job. Go home. At 32, Naomi had learned that invisibility was a survival skill. As a black woman working high-end events in this city, she understood that certain people preferred not to see her at all. And she had made peace with that, because every paycheck meant another month of stability for her daughter. "Naomi, you take the reception hall. I'll handle the entrance," her co-worker Denise called out, already heading toward the main doors with her own cart. Naomi nodded and made her way through the grand hall. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings. The guest list she had heard included senators, CEOs, and old money families whose names appeared on hospital wings and university buildings. She was polishing the welcome table when she saw a large framed photograph of the groom. Her hands stopped moving. Raphael Anderson. She knew that face. Not from magazines or news articles, though he appeared in those often enough. She knew him from a letter she had carried in her wallet for 8 years. 8 years ago, Naomi had been 24, a single mother, with a 3-year-old daughter named Lily. When doctors discovered Lily's congenital heart defect, they gave Naomi a choice that was not really a choice at all: surgery that cost more than she would earn in a decade, or watch her daughter die. No insurance, no savings, no family to turn to. Then came the letter from the Flame of Hope Foundation, Raphael Anderson's charity, dedicated to helping single mothers and children in crisis. They would cover everything: the surgery, the hospital stay, the follow-up care, all of it. Naomi had never met Raphael Anderson. She was just one of thousands his foundation helped each year. But she had written him a thank you letter, 3 pages of gratitude she never sent, because she could not find the words to express what it meant to watch her daughter wake up after surgery alive and whole. She still carried that letter in her wallet, a reminder of the debt she could never repay. Now standing in the cathedral where he would marry tomorrow, Naomi felt her chest tighten. She whispered to herself, "He doesn't know who I am. I'm just one of thousands." She returned to her work polishing silverware and arranging napkins with practiced efficiency. An hour later, the bride arrived. Clara Whitmore swept into the hall like she owned it, which Naomi supposed she soon would. The woman was stunning with honey blonde hair and a smile that seemed designed for cameras. A tall man in an expensive suit followed close behind her. "The flowers need to be moved 6 inches to the left," Clara instructed someone on her phone. "And tell the photographer I want soft lighting only. Nothing harsh?" Naomi stepped aside to let them pass her arms full of champagne flutes. Clara did not step aside. The collision sent 3 glasses crashing to the marble floor. Champagne splashed across Naomi's shoes. Shards of crystal scattered everywhere. "Oh, for God's sake," Clara muttered, not to Naomi but to the man beside her. "They should hire people who actually know how to do their jobs." Naomi knelt immediately, gathering the broken pieces with her bare hands. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I'll clean this up right away." Clara did not acknowledge her. She simply continued walking, heels clicking against the marble. The man glanced back at Naomi just for a moment, then followed Clara toward the bridal suite. Naomi heard Clara's voice drifting back. "I cannot stand seeing these people during the ceremony. Make sure they stay out of sight." Denise appeared at Naomi's side, helping her collect the glass. "You okay?" "Fine. Don't let her get to you. We're just the help, remember, invisible." Naomi said nothing. She finished cleaning and returned to her cart, but something cold had settled in her stomach. By 11 that night, most of the preparation crew had gone home. Naomi remained behind to finish cleaning the bridal suite area overtime she needed for Lily's school supplies. She pushed her cart into the storage room adjacent to the bridal suite, entering through the connecting door. The main suite appeared empty, its lights dimmed. She began restocking supplies in the darkness, working by the faint glow from the window. Then she heard voices. The door to the bridal suite opened. Clara's heels clicked against the floor. The man's voice followed the same man from earlier. "Everything is in place," he said. "After the wedding, the prenuptial agreement gives you access to 30% of his assets within the first year, but the real prize is the foundation." Naomi froze. The connecting door between the rooms stood slightly ajar. Through the gap, she could see shadows moving. Clara laughed softly. "The Flame of Hope Foundation. That old fool pours hundreds of millions into that meaningless charity. Once I'm on the board as his wife, I'll redirect the funds gradually. No one will notice until it's too late." Naomi pressed herself against the wall, heart pounding so loud she feared they might hear it. "And if he finds out?" Marcus asked. "He won't." Clara's voice dripped with confidence. "Raphael trusts me completely. He's lonely, desperate for companionship, and I've given him exactly what he wanted to hear for 2 years. After I control the foundation, I'll slowly push him out of decision-making. Then either a divorce with a massive settlement, or I'll arrange for him to retire early if necessary." "What about his daughter?" "She lives in Europe. Doesn't care about her father. I've done my research. No one will stand up for him." Naomi's hands trembled. Slowly, silently, she pulled her phone from her pocket and pressed record. For the next several minutes, she stood motionless in the darkness, capturing every word. Clara discussed timelines, legal strategies, and how she had manipulated Raphael's emotions since his wife's death 5 years ago. Marcus, apparently both her lawyer and something more, outlined the financial mechanisms they would use to drain the foundation. When they finally left, Naomi remained frozen for a long moment. Then she grabbed her cart and fled through the service exit. Outside, the parking lot was nearly empty. Naomi sat on a concrete barrier, her phone clutched in her shaking hands. She played the recording back, hearing Clara's voice again. "That old fool pours hundreds of millions into that meaningless charity." The Flame of Hope Foundation, the charity that had saved Lily's life. If Clara succeeded, how many children like Lily would lose their chance? "Naomi!" Denise emerged from the building, pulling on her jacket. "What are you doing out here? You look like you've seen a ghost." Naomi told her everything. Denise's face went pale, then hard. "Delete it." "What? Delete that recording right now." Denise grabbed Naomi's arm. "Are you insane? This is a billionaire's wedding. You're a black waitress who crashed into the bride earlier today? Who do you think they're going to believe? You'll lose your job. You'll get sued for defamation. They might even press criminal charges for invasion of privacy. But she's going to destroy his foundation. That's not your problem." Denise's voice cracked. "Naomi, I've been doing this job for 20 years. You know what I've learned. Rich people's business is their business. We don't exist to them. We're furniture, and furniture doesn't have opinions." Naomi stared at the phone in her hands. Denise softened her voice. "Think about Lily. Think about what happens to her if you go to prison, or if you can't find work because every catering company in the city blacklists you. Is this really worth risking everything?" She left Naomi alone in the parking lot. For a long time, Naomi sat there, the night air cold against her skin. She pulled out her wallet and looked at the photograph tucked inside Lily at her last birthday, grinning with cake frosting on her nose. She remembered the day she received the letter from the foundation. She remembered holding Lily in the hospital, watching monitors beep with her daughter's steady heartbeat after surgery. She remembered writing that thank you letter, crying over every word. She had written, "I don't know how to repay you, but if there's ever anything I can do, I will never say no." Naomi looked at the cathedral, its spires reaching toward the dark sky. If someone had known the truth back then, if someone had chosen silence, would Lily still be alive? She could not answer that question. But she knew one thing, with absolute certainty: she could not stay silent now. The problem was simple and impossible. She was a black waitress with no status, no power, and no voice. And tomorrow she would have to stop a billionaire's wedding. The morning sun cast golden light through the stained glass windows of St. Augustine Cathedral. By 7 o'clock, the building hummed with activity, florists making final adjustments, photographers scouting angles, and catering staff preparing for the 500 guests who would arrive in just a few hours. Naomi had not slept. She had spent the night listening to the recording over and over, memorizing every damning word. Now she stood outside the cathedral wearing her black uniform, her employee badge hanging around her neck. She had a plan. A desperate one, but a plan nonetheless. The groom's preparation room was on the east wing, separated from the main hall by a long corridor. If she could reach Raphael before the ceremony, if she could get him alone for just 2 minutes, she could play the recording and let him decide for himself. Naomi entered through the service entrance and made her way toward the east wing. Her heart hammered against her ribs with every step. She turned the corner and found 2 security guards standing outside a mahogany door. "Excuse me," Naomi said, keeping her voice steady. "I need to speak with Mr. Anderson. It's urgent." The larger guard looked her up and down, his eyes lingering on her uniform. "Service staff aren't allowed in this area." "I understand, but this is important. Just 2 minutes." "Lady, I don't care if you have a message from God himself. No one gets in without authorization. Now go back to whatever you're supposed to be doing." Naomi tried again. "Please, if you could just tell him that someone has information about his fiancée." The guard stepped forward, his bulk blocking her path entirely. "I said no. You want me to call your supervisor?" She retreated, her mind racing. In the service kitchen, Naomi found a pen and a scrap of paper. She wrote quickly, "Mr. Anderson, do not sign any documents today. I have evidence that your fiancé is planning to defraud you. Please meet me before the ceremony. It is a matter of your foundation's survival." She hesitated, then signed it simply with the letter N. A young server named Derek was arranging appetizers nearby. Naomi approached him with the folded note. "Derek, can you do me a favor? I need this delivered to the groom's room. It's important." Derek took the paper with a shrug. "Sure, no problem." Naomi watched him disappear down the corridor, hope flickering in her chest. What she did not see was Clara Whitmore walking through the same corridor 5 minutes later, her white silk robe flowing behind her as she moved between rooms. Clara spotted Derek, noticed the paper in his hand, and stopped him with a single raised finger. "What's that?" Derek fumbled. "Just a note for Mr. Anderson, ma'am. One of the catering staff asked me to deliver it." Clara held out her hand, her smile not reaching her eyes. "I'll take it to him. We're about to see each other anyway." She took the note before Derek could respond. As he walked away, she unfolded the paper and read. Her face went cold. Clara summoned the catering manager to the bridal suite within 10 minutes. The manager, a thin man named Patterson, who had worked too many years in this business to question wealthy clients, arrived with a clipboard and a nervous expression. "I need you to find out who wrote this." Clara handed him the note. "And I need that person removed from the premises immediately." Patterson examined the handwriting, the paper, the letter N at the bottom. "I'll look into it right away, Ms. Whitmore." "Do more than look into it. Whoever this is has been harassing me since last night. She's unstable, possibly dangerous. I don't want her anywhere near the ceremony." Within the hour, Patterson had identified the handwriting. Naomi Carter, the same woman who had caused a scene with the champagne glasses the night before. He found her restocking napkins in the reception hall. "Naomi, my office now." Naomi followed him to a small room near the service entrance, her stomach sinking with each step. Patterson closed the door and turned to face her, the note in his hand. "Did you write this?" She saw no point in lying. "Yes." "What were you thinking?" Patterson's voice rose with disbelief. "You're here to serve food, not to interfere with guests' personal lives. Do you have any idea who these people are?" "I know exactly who they are, and I know what the bride is planning." Patterson held up his hand. "I don't want to hear it. Whatever you think you know, whatever drama you've invented in your head, it's not your concern. It's not drama. I have proof. If you would just listen." "Proof." Patterson laughed, though there was no humor in it. "You're a server. She's marrying one of the richest men in the country. Who do you think anyone is going to believe, a woman in a catering uniform or a socialite with a perfect reputation?" Naomi felt the words land like physical blows, but she pressed on. "The foundation, his charity. She's going to destroy it. Hundreds of people depend on that foundation." "Enough." Patterson set down the note. "You're suspended effective immediately. Leave the premises now or I'll have security escort you out. And don't expect a reference. You've just ended your career in this industry." Naomi stood frozen. "You're not even going to investigate." "There's nothing to investigate. A disgruntled employee making accusations against a bride on her wedding day? That's not a mystery. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen." Patterson opened the door. "Go home, Naomi, for your own sake." 5 minutes later, Naomi found herself standing outside the cathedral gates, her employee badge confiscated, her uniform, suddenly feeling like a costume for a role she was no longer allowed to play. Guests had begun arriving. Limousines lined the street. Women in designer gowns and men in tailored suits streamed toward the entrance, laughing and greeting each other with air kisses. None of them looked at her. She was invisible again, not even worth noticing. Denise rushed out through the service entrance, still in uniform. "Naomi, I heard what happened. Are you okay?" They wouldn't listen. Of course they wouldn't. Denise's voice carried a mix of sympathy and frustration. "I told you this would happen. Now what, you've lost your job, you've probably got a complaint on your record, and for what?" Naomi stared at the cathedral doors. Through them, in less than an hour, Raphael Anderson would marry a woman who planned to rob him of everything he had built. "I can't just leave," she said quietly. "Yes, you can. You walk to your car, you drive home, and you hug your daughter. That's what you can do." Denise grabbed her shoulders. "Think about Lily. She needs her mother employed, not in jail for trespassing or harassment." The mention of Lily made Naomi's breath catch. Denise softened her voice. "I know you want to do the right thing, but sometimes the right thing for other people isn't the right thing for your family. Let it go." She squeezed Naomi's arm one last time, then hurried back inside. Naomi walked slowly to her car parked 3 blocks away. She sat in the driver's seat without starting the engine, her hands resting on the steering wheel. From her wallet, she pulled out 2 items. The first was the photograph of Lily, 11 years old now, healthy, brilliant, with her mother's eyes and a smile that could light up any room. The second was a letter folded so many times the creases had worn thin. Naomi unfolded it carefully and began to read her own words from 8 years ago. "Dear Mr. Anderson, I don't know how to begin this letter. 3 months ago, my daughter Lily was dying. The doctor said she needed surgery that I could never afford. I had no insurance, no savings, no hope. Then your foundation reached out. You saved her life. You gave me back my daughter. I've tried 100 times to write to you, but words feel so small compared to what you gave us. All I can say is this: I don't know how to repay you. I don't know if I ever can. But if there's ever anything I can do for you, I will never say no. I promise you that. With all my heart, Naomi Carter." She had written those words in a hospital room, tears streaming down her face, as Lily slept peacefully after surgery, her heartbeat strong for the first time in her short life. Naomi refolded the letter. She thought about what Denise had said. Let it go. Think about your family. But wasn't that exactly what she was doing? If someone had known the truth about the foundation 8 years ago, if someone had seen corruption coming and chosen to stay silent, would Lily have received that letter? Would she have gotten that surgery? Would she be alive today? Naomi could not answer those questions, but she could answer this one. What kind of example would she set for her daughter if she walked away now? She looked at the photograph one more time. Then she got out of the car and began walking back toward the cathedral. The ceremony had already begun by the time Naomi reached the building. Through the massive oak doors, she could hear the organ playing the murmur of 500 voices settling into silence. Her employee badge was gone, but she still knew the building. The service entrance on the south side had a simple lock that the catering staff often left open during events. Naomi slipped inside. She moved through the narrow service corridors past the kitchen where staff were preparing the reception meal, past storage rooms and electrical panels. The sounds of the ceremony grew louder as she approached the main hall. She found a spot near the back entrance, partially hidden behind a column draped in white fabric. From here, she could see everything. The cathedral was breathtaking. Candles flickered in crystal holders. White roses bloomed from every surface. 500 of the city's most powerful people filled the pews, their attention focused on the altar. Raphael stood at the front, distinguished in his black tuxedo, his silver hair catching the light. He looked nervous but happy, the kind of happiness that comes from believing you have found love after loss. Clara walked down the aisle in a gown that must have cost more than Naomi earned in 2 years. She was radiant, every step perfectly measured, her smile flawless. The priest began the ceremony. His voice echoed through the vast space, speaking of love commitment and the sacred bond of marriage. Naomi's hand tightened around her phone in her pocket. The recording was ready. All she needed was the right moment. Then the priest spoke the words she had been waiting for. If anyone present knows of any reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace. Silence fell over the cathedral. Clara's smile widened. Raphael reached for her hand. Naomi stepped out from behind the column. She walked down the center aisle, her worn shoes silent against the marble floor. One step, then another, then another. Heads turned. Whispers erupted. Someone gasped. Clara's smile vanished. Marcus, seated in the front row, rose to his feet. Security guards appeared from the sides, converging on Naomi. One of them grabbed her arm roughly. "Mr. Anderson," Naomi's voice rang through the cathedral. "You need to hear this before it's too late." Raphael stared at her, confusion written across his face. "Who are you?" Clara leaned close to him, her voice carrying just enough for the nearby guests to hear. "That's the woman from last night, the one who was causing problems. She was fired this morning. She's mentally unstable." The guard tightened his grip on Naomi's arm. Another grabbed her other side. They began pulling her backward toward the exit. Guests murmured among themselves. Some shook their heads in pity. Others looked annoyed at the interruption. Naomi heard the words they weren't saying. Of course it's her, just a server, just a black woman making a scene at a rich man's wedding. Probably looking for attention. Probably looking for money. She had seconds before they dragged her out. With strength born of desperation, Naomi twisted free and ran. She sprinted up the aisle, past the reaching hands of security, past the shocked faces of guests. She reached the altar and grabbed Raphael's hand, pulling him away from Clara. "What are you doing?" Raphael demanded, trying to pull back. Naomi yanked her phone from her pocket and pressed play, holding it up as high as she could. Clara's voice exploded through the silent cathedral. "The Flame of Hope Foundation. That old fool pours hundreds of millions into that meaningless charity. Once I'm on the board as his wife, I'll redirect the funds gradually." The recording continued sharp and clear. "Raphael trusts me completely. He's lonely, desperate for companionship, and I've given him exactly what he wanted to hear for 2 years." Every eye in the cathedral turned to Clara. her face drained of color. The recording played on relentless. After I control the foundation, I'll slowly push him out of decision-making. Then either a divorce with a massive settlement, or I'll arrange for him to retire early if necessary. The silence that followed was absolute. Raphael stood motionless, his hand still in Naomi's grip. His face had turned to stone. Raphael turned slowly toward Clara, his face drained of all color. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "Tell me that's not you. Tell me that recording is fake." Clara's composure cracked for the first time. Her eyes darted to Marcus, then back to Raphael. "Darling, you have to listen to me. That woman, she manipulated the audio. She's been stalking us. She's trying to destroy what we have." "I heard your voice, Clara." Raphael's words came out hollow. "I heard every word." The cathedral erupted in whispers. 500 guests shifted in their seats, craning their necks, pulling out phones. The fairy tale wedding had transformed into something else entirely. Clara reached for Raphael's arm, but he stepped back as if her touch might burn him. "Please," she said, her voice breaking. "You don't understand. My family, we lost everything 3 years ago. My father's company collapsed. We were ruined. I didn't have a choice." "You had a choice." Raphael's voice grew stronger, now harder. "You could have been honest. You could have told me the truth. Instead, you lied to me for 2 years. You made me believe you loved me." Clara's mask slipped further, desperation replacing her practiced charm. "I do love you. In my own way, I do. But I was scared. I needed security. You needed my money." Raphael cut her off. "And you were willing to destroy my foundation to get it. The foundation I built in my wife's memory. The foundation that helps children and mothers who have nothing." In the front row, Marcus rose from his seat and began moving quietly toward the side exit. A distinguished man in a gray suit, a federal prosecutor who had known Raphael for 20 years, noticed and signaled to security. Within seconds, 2 guards blocked Marcus's path. "Going somewhere, counselor?" the prosecutor asked. Clara watched Marcus being detained, and something in her finally broke. She whirled toward Naomi, who still stood at the altar, clutching her phone. "This is your fault." Clara's voice rose to a scream. "You had no right. You're nobody, just a servant, a waitress. How dare you interfere in my life?" Naomi met her gaze without flinching. She said nothing. Clara lunged toward her, but security intervened before she could take more than 2 steps. As guards restrained her arms, she continued to shout, her perfectly styled hair coming loose, her designer gown trailing on the marble floor. "You'll regret this. I'll destroy you. You think anyone will believe a woman like you over someone like me?" Raphael stepped between them, his back to Clara, his eyes on Naomi. "Someone already did," he said quietly. The police arrived within the hour, summoned by the prosecutor who had already begun making calls. Clara and Marcus were escorted out through the service entrance, away from the cameras that had inevitably appeared. The charges, Naomi would later learn, included conspiracy to commit fraud and attempted theft by deception. Clara's detailed discussions of her plans, captured on Naomi's recording, provided more than enough evidence to proceed. As Clara was led away, she turned one last time toward the altar where her dreams of wealth had crumbled. "You're just a servant," she spat at Naomi. "That's all you'll ever be." The doors closed behind her. The guests dispersed slowly in small clusters of shocked conversation. Some approached Raphael to offer awkward condolences. Others simply left, eager to escape the wreckage of what should have been a celebration. Within an hour, the cathedral was nearly empty. The flowers still bloomed, the candles still flickered. But the altar stood abandoned, the priest long gone, the vows never completed. Naomi remained near the back of the hall, unsure whether to leave or stay. She had done what she came to do. The rest was not her business. But then Raphael walked toward her. He moved slowly, like a man who had aged 10 years in a single morning. When he reached her, he simply stood there for a moment, looking at her as if truly seeing her for the first time. "I don't even know your name," he finally said. "Naomi. Naomi Carter." Raphael nodded slowly. "Naomi, why did you do this? You lost your job. You risked everything. Why would you do that for a stranger?" Naomi reached into the pocket of her uniform. Her fingers found the worn paper she had carried for 8 years. She unfolded it carefully and held it out to him. "Because you're not a stranger to me, Mr. Anderson." Raphael took the letter, confusion in his eyes. He began to read. "8 years ago," Naomi said as he scanned the pages, "my daughter Lily was 3 years old. She had a heart defect that was going to kill her. I had no insurance, no money, no family to help. Then I got a letter from your foundation. The Flame of Hope Foundation paid for her surgery. They saved her life." Raphael looked up from the letter, his eyes glistening. "I wrote that letter in Lily's hospital room," Naomi continued. "She was sleeping after surgery, and I was crying so hard I could barely hold the pen. I wanted to thank you, but I never sent it. I didn't think you would ever read something from someone like me. But I made a promise in that letter. I said if there was ever anything I could do for you, I would never say no." She gestured toward the letter in his hands. Today was that day. Raphael read the final lines of the letter, his hands trembling slightly. When he finished, he folded the paper with care and looked at Naomi with an expression she could not quite name. "You don't owe me anything," he said. "The foundation was created to help people like you and Lily. That's what my wife would have wanted. That's what I wanted." He handed the letter back to her. "But I want you to know something, Naomi. In all my years, all the business deals, all the charity events, all the people who claimed to be my friends, you are the only person who ever told me the truth when it mattered. And you did it knowing it could cost you everything." Naomi took the letter and tucked it back into her pocket. "I just did what I promised I would do." Raphael shook his head. "You did more than that. You reminded me that courage doesn't come from wealth or status. It comes from people who have nothing to gain and everything to lose, and who act anyway." 1 month later, Naomi stood in front of a mirror in a small dressing room, adjusting the collar of a blazer she had never imagined owning. Today was the launch of a new initiative from the Flame of Hope Foundation, a program called Voices from the Shadows. It was designed to support workers who were often invisible servers, cleaners, security guards, caregivers, people who kept the world running, but were rarely seen or heard. Raphael had asked Naomi to be the program's first community representative. She had tried to refuse, insisting she was not qualified. But he had simply smiled and said, "You're the most qualified person I know." The door opened, and Lily walked in. At 11 years old, she was healthy, bright-eyed, and endlessly curious. She had met Raphael for the first time that morning, shaking his hand with the serious formality of a child trying to act grown up. "Mom, Mr. Anderson wants to know if you're ready." Naomi smoothed her blazer one last time. Almost. Lily came to stand beside her, looking at their reflection in the mirror. "Are you nervous?" "A little." Lily took her mother's hand. "Don't be. You're the bravest person I know." They walked out together to the event hall, where Raphael waited near the podium. The room was filled with journalists, foundation staff, and community members who would benefit from the new program. Raphael caught Naomi's eye and nodded. Lily tugged at his sleeve before Naomi could reach them. "Mr. Anderson." He knelt down to her level. "Yes. Thank you for saving me when I was little. And thank you for believing my mom when no one else did." Raphael smiled a genuine smile. Perhaps the first since his wedding day. "Your mother saved me, Lily. Don't ever forget that." Naomi took her place at the podium. The cameras flashed. The audience quieted. She thought about Clara's final words. "You're just a servant. That's all you'll ever be." She looked out at the crowd, at Lily's proud face, at Raphael's encouraging nod, at the rows of people who had come to witness something new being born. Then she spoke. "My name is Naomi Carter. For most of my life, I was invisible. But I learned something important. Sometimes the people no one notices are the ones who see the truth most clearly. And sometimes speaking that truth is the most powerful thing you can do." The wedding had ended in ruins. But from those ruins, something unexpected had grown, not a romance, but something rarer. A connection built on truth, respect, and the belief that every voice matters, no matter how quiet it has been forced to be.